Jeff Bezos, he's got $270 billion or so, and he went on CNBC on Wednesday morning, broadcasting live like a Bond supervillain from his personal rocket launch pad in Merritt Island, Florida, because of course he was. And he informed the American people with a perfectly straight face that doubling his tax bill would not help a single Queens school teacher. "I promise you," he said, "I promise you."
These people sometimes say that I don't pay taxes. That's not true. I pay billions of dollars in taxes. And it's a perfect, again, if people want me to pay more billions, right, then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you.
This is the same Jeff Bezos whose Amazon collected a $14 billion federal tax refund 3 years running. This is the same Jeff Bezos whose ex-wife and one of the only good billionaires out there, Mackenzie Scott, in her 4 post-divorce years of solo billionairing, has given away more money to American public schools than Jeff has given to literally anything in his 26 years of running Amazon. But he promises you. He promises you the way a Comcast salesperson promises you that the bundle is totally a better deal. Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani, he responded on X within the hour saying he knows a few teachers in Queens who would beg to differ. And those 6 words or so broke the Bezos brain like a thumb drive going into the wrong port. Because if you actually run the math, even slowly, even using a calculator app, or even the back of the Amazon shipping box, the gap between what Bezos is claiming on national television and what is actual empirical truth is so big you could park a rocket in it, which that man literally does on weekends. So let's look at the math, shall we? Jeff Bezos, roughly $270 billion per the latest Bloomberg Billionaires Index. And for good measure, let's toss in Elon Musk, who might actually be Satan. He's got somewhere between $400 billion and $839 billion, depending on if you're asking Forbes or Bloomberg. Combined, those men control approximately $1 trillion in personal wealth. 1 trillion with a T. The entire annual cost of giving every public school teacher in America a $10,000 raise is approximately $35 billion. The entire annual cost of eliminating those back-to-school supply burden, that going for school supplies that all American parents have to suffer through, the glue sticks, the Kleenex boxes, the Leapfrog letter factory, the 3-ring binders, that's approximately $30 billion a year, $65 billion combined. Take that from the personal wealth of those 2 human beings, and you could fund those programs for 15 straight years and still have $935 billion left over. And with that money, you could do other things like fix healthcare or something. And Jeff Bezos' pitch on national television is that doubling his personal tax bill, which would still leave him with $250 billion to keep his rocket pad heated, would somehow not help a single teacher in Queens. Look, we know he is Trump's favorite Amazon mogul, and he looked right into that camera and made one of the all-time great gaslighting performances in capitalist history. To me, it ranks somewhere just above Gordon Gekko in front of the shareholders. And this gets better, because Bezos went on the same network on the same morning, to actively defend Ken Griffin, the hedge fund billionaire who in 2019 bought a single penthouse on Billionaires Row in New York for $238 million. $238 million for one apartment. Bezos says Ken Griffin isn't a villain. He hasn't hurt anybody. He's not hurting New York. In fact, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. This is a man, by the way, whose hedge fund personally crashed 2 retail brokerages and owns one of, if not the, single most expensive private residence in American history. And Jeff Bezos thinks that that is helping New York. That apartment alone by itself could fund the entire New York public library system for a year and a half. And that home sits empty most of the time, so that a guy from Chicago can have a place to keep his spare suits. And Mamdani's actual proposal is a tax on second or greater homes in New York City, only if they're worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not happen to live in them year-round. A $5 million property. If you can afford to buy a $5 million apartment as your backup apartment, you can afford to pay a slightly higher property tax than the family of four in Astoria pays on their one apartment. That's the entire proposal. And the response from one of the four richest men in the history of human civilization is, it won't help a teacher. I beg to differ. And in case you needed it spelled out, the same week that Bezos took to CNBC to argue against taxing second properties, Donald Trump is currently in active negotiations with Congress to extend the corporate tax cuts that handed Amazon that $14 billion federal refund 3 years in a row. So when MAGA tells you that Mamdani is a communist because he asks Ken Griffin to pay his fair share on his $238 million penthouse, what MAGA is actually telling you is that greed is good when billionaires benefit from it. When working people benefit from it, it's scary communism. And that's why I need you to subscribe so that I can keep yelling about this until the teachers and queens finally get their raise.